Dead Presidents podcast is brought to you in part by J.W. Mulcahy, Merchant Tailor, who respectfully begs leave to inform the public that he has just received a very choice lot of English and French cashmeres, silks, and linen vesting. His stock is of the most fashionable and finest qualities, he works on the shortest notice, and his prices are unusually low. His shop is conveniently located on 4th Street near Main and Market. To our male listeners, J.W. Mulcahy will take your style to the next level. Get spiffed up in his fine fashions, and you'll be attracting babes left and right. They simply won't be able to resist you. That's a message from our sponsor, Merchant Tailor, J.W. Mulcahy.
Oh. Well, this is awkward, James. Our next sponsor is R. Watts, who publishes this important notice. Whereas J.W. Mulcahy, a merchant tailor who keeps his shop on 4th Street between Main and Market in this city, has induced my wife, Mary L. Watts, to violate her marriage vows and to leave my bed and board, this notice is to forewarn all persons from crediting or harboring her on my account, as I am determined not to pay any debts of her contracting. And this is further to warn the public against this notorious destroyer of the peace of families, as I consider him a villain of the deepest dye. Listeners, we are deeply disappointed in our previous sponsor, J.W. Mulcahy, and want to make clear that his conduct does not reflect the values of the Dead Presidents podcast. When we agreed to run his Merchant Tailor ad, we had no idea that he was a disgraceful homewrecker. Our hearts go out to R. Watts, a good and honest man, whose world has been shattered by J.W. Mulcahy's shameless philandering. Hopefully, the sordid details of this affair will remain private.
This just in, we have a breaking news report bringing to light some of the sordid details of this affair. On Friday afternoon last, Mr. R. Watts, who resides in the upper part of the city, came home rather unexpectedly and caught his wife, whose fidelity he had for some time suspected, in a rather equivocal position with Mr. Mulcahy, a merchant tailor on 4th Street between Main and Market. When they were discovered, they acknowledged they had been engaged in this illicit commerce for some 14 months. Mr. Watts did not cut his wife's throat, blow out her seducer's brains, and then go drown himself, nor did he perpetrate any other horrible tragedy, but like a sensible man, he made Mulcahy promise to take away and provide for his guilty spouse, which he did, and moreover promised to marry her as soon as Mr. Watts could get a divorce.
Hear, hear.
Listeners, things had the potential to get very ugly here, but fortunately, cooler heads prevailed. The parties can now close the book on this unseemly chapter and move on with their lives, thankful that no violent scene occurred.
We have another breaking news update. Apparently, a violent scene has occurred in full view of the public. Considerable excitement was created on Main Street yesterday in the vicinity of 4th Street by 2 or 3 fights following each other in rapid succession between a Mr. Watts and a Mr. Mulcahy, a tailor. At the first encounter, Watts inflicted some punishment with his fist in the face of Mulcahy, but was immediately arrested by the bystanders. Soon after, they encountered each other again, Watts making the attack when he was cut in 3 or 4 places by a small knife in the hands of Mulcahy. He succeeded in getting his antagonist down in the gutter, where they were again separated. By this time, quite a crowd had assembled, and much feeling was manifested against Mulcahy, who was finally taken secretly away by his friends. The cuts inflicted on Mr. Watts were not serious. The encounter grew out of the affair that had been brooded about in regard to the liaison of Mrs. Watts with Mulcahy, the husband having been much irritated of late by the supposed slanderous talk of Mulcahy in regard to himself. The general impression of the bystanders was that the seducer didn't get whipped enough. Listeners, if you see J.W. Mulcahy walking down the street, feel free to bash him upside the head a time or two. R. Watts will thank you, the Dead President's podcast will thank you, and public opinion will be on your side, as this contemptible rake has only gotten a fraction of what's coming to him. In the meantime, be sure to get your clothes tailored somewhere else. That's a message from our sponsor, R. Watts.